Moving on from that now, this is a story that I was desperate to bring to you. It's a very serious one, so, strap yourselves in. 20 men face a combined total of around 219 years behind bars for raping and abusing young girls after a series of trials. It can now be revealed the 20 men were convicted of sexually exploiting 4 girls between the ages of 12 and 16 in Calderdale in West Yorkshire. There's a lot going on here with this case. I am going to let our reporter, Charlie Peters, fill you in on the details here. So, Charlie.
Well, Patrick, these allegations and these convictions relate to abuse that occurred from 2001 to 2010, and the investigations were launched by West Yorkshire Police in 2016. But due to the fact that many of these gangs and perpetrators were interlinked and much of the evidence was associated with several trials, legal restrictions were applied from the very start to ensure that safe legal processes could be secured. And it has meant that 20 men, it can now be revealed, were jailed for a combined total of 219 years. Now, as you can do the basic maths, most of those sentences are about 10 years each, but there is one sentence of over 20 years for one of those perpetrators from West Yorkshire. The vast majority of the offenders of Pakistani heritage from Halifax, but there's also another offender from Bradford. And this comes as the widespread discussion about national grooming gangs continues, with Robert Jenrick, now the Shadow Justice Secretary, saying earlier today to GBNews that grooming gang perpetrators should be jailed for life. Now, some of these offenders that you're seeing on your screen now were given sentences of 11 years for convictions of rape and also threats to kill. Now, just as this news has come out today from West Yorkshire Police, I've been able to reveal today that there are also a set of reductions of sentences in Rotheram. 2 offenders, one man called Abid Sadiq, on the left in the red circle, and another, Mohammed Siab, had their sentences reduced after a judge made an error at a sentencing in Sheffield Crown Court earlier this month in September. Sadiq's sentence was reduced by 3 years to 21 years. He was convicted of raping a girl under the age of 13, and Mohammed Siab had his sentence reduced by 1 year to 24 years. So a sentence reduction there for those offenders, despite claims being made and demands being made by Robert Jenrick, that Shadow Justice Secretary. I can also reveal that one of the survivors in that trial who brought forward those allegations and gave evidence and actually gave a victim impact statement in the court was involved with an altercation with the relatives of those perpetrators at Sheffield Crown Court this week. I've been told that those relatives were staring down this survivor in the court when they intervened, and when she intervened, the judge removed them, but there were allegedly threats of violence outside the court soon after. Now, I'm told that officers from the National Crime Agency who led the investigation and also court security intervened, but a very significant situation to occur as 2 grooming gang perpetrators have their sentences reduced.
Charlie, thank you very much for coming on the show. I mean, obviously, incredibly difficult and harrowing subject matter, but it's important that at least one news outlet anyway covers it in detail. Charlie Peters there. Thank you very, very much. Right, a couple of separate cases there for us. Let's deal with the first one first. Some of those sentences, it sounds a lot, Mark, when you add it all up, 219 years. But as Charlie was saying there, some of those sentences are for multiple counts of rape and for threats to kill. And if you're getting 11 years, what will that work out as? 5.5, probably? That's
right. You've got to bear in mind that the likelihood is, not the certainty, but the likelihood is you only serve half the sentence.
Disgusting.
So, you take the number that Charlie's just explained, given in court, and more or less, your best guesstimate is they serve half of it. So I'm rather with Robert Jenrick here. I think we've got to change our approach to prisons and incarcerating people, probably putting in fewer people to prison for longer. Yeah. If you've got a kind of minor drugs offence or something, I'm not sure I'd lock you up for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So I'd like the space to be much more available to lock people up for 20, 30, 40 years or life without parole.
Okay. Go on, Adam.
Look, let's remember, the grooming gang scandal is probably one of the biggest scandals of my lifetime. we had authorities and people in power that reached all the way up to number 10, covering things up and intervening just so people weren't labelled racist. We had girls raped, UK girls raped, because the authorities would not step in and turned a blind eye. This is a disgrace, and I hope they rot in prison and they never come out.
So let's just stick with the sentencing thing, I think, really. I mean, there is another point, which is that, as Charlie was saying there, remarkably, in a separate case, it appears as though some family members of one of the people who just had the sentences reduced were staring down a survivor, and there were threats of violence outside, which, I mean, that it really is disgusting, really, if that's true, which I have no reason to doubt. But those sentences, what message does that send to someone who can conceivably act with impunity for years and get away with it until they eventually get caught, if they get caught, and then 5 and a bit years? I mean, is that enough, do you think?
I think it's disgraceful. I mean, these poor girls, it's always just broken my heart because nobody has taken care of them. And it was done, I think, the lack of sentencing before was done for probably a very altruistic reason, completely misguided. I completely think that these people should be jailed, and jailed possibly for longer. I don't know why the sentence is reduced. Maybe it's some legal thing we know nothing about.
Technicality, yeah.
But the point being, we also have to deal with the situation that we have no space in our jails. We don't have space to keep
Stop locking up people for online hate or online hurting words.
One solution to that would be, generally speaking, don't lock people up unless you're going to lock them up for several years. Don't lock them up for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months.
Incitement to violence is never to be encouraged and also to be punished.
It could be, I mean, another solution might be to build more prisons, I suppose, wouldn't it? Right, look, bit heavy subject matter, to say the least. Thank you very much, because you had that thrown at you. And thank you very much to Charlie again. I just thought it was important to get that out there.
Now, 2 abusers from the Rotheram child sexual exploitation scandal have had their sentences reduced after an admin error. It's an astonishing story, and GBNews can reveal this exclusively now. And the 2 rapists were convicted of historic offences against a schoolgirl earlier this year. And the judge ordered relatives of the abusers to leave the court after the survivor criticised their behaviour. And this is another exclusive story from our national reporter, Charlie Peters. And he joins me now. Charlie, an astonishing development on a story you've been across for many, many months. Tell us more.
Where 2 members of those 7 defendants who were sentenced in September have had their sentences reduced, as I understand it, after an administrative error by the judge, Mr. Justice Slater, back when he handed down those sentences in September. So the 2 offenders who've had the changes are Abid Sadiq and Mohammed Siab. I think we have a photo we can show you now. In the top left, that is Sadiq. He's 43. He was convicted in June of 3 counts of rape and 1 of indecent assault. He was sentenced then to 24 years imprisonment, but as I understand it, that's been reduced by 3 years to 21 years, consisting of 20 years imprisonment and another 12 months of extended licence. The second man in the red circle is Mohammed Siab, 49-year-old. He was convicted in June of 2 counts of rape, 1 of sexual intercourse with a girl under 13 and 1 count of trafficking. Now, he was previously handed down 25 years imprisonment. That's been reduced to 24 years, so 1 year taken off his sentence. But as I understand it, despite those reductions, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll actually spend less time in jail. In fact, they could be behind bars for longer, because I'm told that the judge in this case, Mr. Justice Slater, despite reducing those sentences, he's also made it the case that they'll have to face a parole board should they wish to be released. They'll no longer enjoy automatic release after serving 2/3 of their sentence, which is what I heard they were to receive in September when I attended this case at Sheffield Crown Court. But as you said in your intro, Martin, it's more than just the reduction in the sentence that we can bring you today. We can also reveal that there was an altercation between one of the survivors in this case and indeed the relatives of these 2 grooming gang rapists. Now, as I understand it, the survivor in the court felt as though they were being, quote, dead-eyed by relatives in the public gallery, that they were staring her down. She objected to this and said as such, and the judge ordered them to leave the courtroom. But later, outside that courtroom, there was an alleged threat of physical violence with one man, related, we believe, to one of the perpetrators, calling on another relative to use force against that same survivor. Now, I'm told that officers from the National Crime Agency, who led the sub-operation in this investigation that led to these convictions and these jailings, intervened after there was, they say, an exchange of words. That's as I understand it. And that court security also intervened to keep the peace. So not only has this survivor had to return to court 2 months after seeing them being sentenced, after a 2-decade wait, we should say, for justice, she's also faced this altercation and this confrontation from relatives of those perpetrators at the court. Quite a stunning situation. Well, after we revealed this situation this afternoon, we have had a reaction from the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, who said that grooming gang rapists should be locked up for life. That's in reaction to their sentences being reduced in this case. He also said if they're foreign nationals, they should be immediately deported, going on to say it's really that simple. Well, in this case, it isn't that simple. We also were able to reveal last month that in this 7-strong sentencing, the survivor in her victim impact statement wanted to call for the deportation of some of those abusers, but the judge blocked it. And that's why Robert Jenrick made that intervention while he was running for leader of the Tory party. But he is today saying that grooming gang perpetrators should be locked up for life and not, as we're revealing today, having their sentences reduced.
Thank you, Charlie Peters. Another fantastic exclusive, a story you've really championed. Well done to you. More excellent journalism.